Good morning, good morning. It's Feedback Friday, and today I want to talk about the 3 reasons why you will not finish the things that you start. So, we are on the 3rd of September. We are going to begin the autumn season. For some people, where children are going back to school, hopefully they'll stay in school, and all those parents that have been struggling with homeschooling, businesses and running a home, etc., will have a little bit of space and a little bit of breathing, a little bit less responsibility. For many business owners that I'm talking to, those that were really busy at the beginning, and everybody wanted them because they'd shifted and pivoted online. They're in a bit of a transition phase because people aren't as ready to go straight back to offline, but they're not as committed to online. And so people are wanting to change and break. And so they're in a kind of bit of a phase of transition. Those who absolutely lost their business overwards are starting now to pick up and starting to see things going out. But generally overall, there's a kind of feeling that yes, we can start planning things. Yes, we can start booking things, but there's still this kind of, it's not the trust that yes, you can really get excited about it and really look forward to it, isn't quite there yet. However, it is September. We are now heading towards the end of the 2021, and this is your opportunity to look back at what you really wanted to have happen this year and give the last 4 months everything you've got, really push through to make sure that you reach the goals that you wanted to get to, that you set yourself. But it's also a massive time and an opportunity to think about what you want to have happen in 2022. And many people that I work with have asked me, when's the best time to plan, Cheryl? And the answer is it has to be a rolling program. It has to be something you do on a regular basis. So it doesn't matter when you plan, it just matters that you do plan and that you start it. But what I have noticed over the years, that those people who are, I'm a bit like this, who are a bit more forward thinking, tend to use November time to really plan for the year ahead, so that when they start their year, it includes January. Those people who are very busy over the Christmas period and perhaps more reflective tend to get through the Christmas period because they've got short-term time perceptions. They get few Christmas, and then middle of January they'll start planning. So particularly think people like accountants who've got really busy time up to the 31st of January. For them, they tend to start planning in February once that real push has gone through, and then they start their process. People in the hospitality trade tend to not do a lot of planning just before because they're in the middle of their busy period over Christmas. So it will depend on your lifestyle, your business, your what's going on for you. But for me personally, what always works is to start the process now in September, to start thinking about what the next 18 months would be looking like, so that when I get to the Christmas break, when I stop work around the 11th of December, I have a plan and I know exactly what I'm going to be doing on the 3rd of January when I come back, which means I can completely switch off and enjoy that period. So that's the kind of feedback, that's the sort of general feeling I'm getting from people. There's some questions that I've been asked this week, but I want to get down to these 3 things that will stop you, or why you don't finish things you started. Number 1, from the Do, Delegate or Ditch system, the 3 components are clarity. Clarity is the first thing. And so the reason why people don't finish what they started is because they actually forget why they started. So a good example for that would be my book. Those of you know that I'm writing Do, Delegate or Ditch. And I have been writing this now for about 5 years. It was at the publisher, it was at the editor, in March of 2020. I pulled it because when it came back and I read it, being more objective, because I'd had a month away from the book, it just wasn't, something was missing, and I wasn't happy with it. Now, it'd be very easy to decide to ditch it, or to have just published it as it was. But I know that the reason why I write my books is because my mum died at 63. I'm 54 this year, and there's so many questions that I wish she was around to ask her how she did things and to learn from her, that I'm determined to make sure that everything I've learned about how coaching can get you through the messy parts of life, I'm committed and determined that I'm going to leave manuals behind for my children, so that the next generation of my family have got that. That's why. So it doesn't matter how hard this process is for writing the book. It doesn't matter how difficult it is for me to get it out of my head. because I'm determined that they're going to have me available to them to answer those questions, I will keep pushing through the uncomfortable parts of this process. The other reason why I do it is because I know that it makes the learnings that I've had available to people at sort of £10, $14.99, and because it brings me so much joy when someone says to me, oh, my sister was really struggling, and I gave her your book and it made such a difference. I know that a friend of mine in negative, I gave it to my mum, she was always really negative, she was always criticising herself, she read the book and she's just a different person. When I get those kinds of stories back, that's why I'm doing it. So it doesn't matter how difficult or how uncomfortable I'm doing it. So whatever the thing is that you're doing, quite often when you made the decision, you weren't conscious of why you were doing it. So you may have made a decision in reactive because somebody else, to keep somebody else happy. It may have been a really good decision at the time, but something's changed. So another example would be that I made a commitment in 2017. I was going to be doing the London to Paris bike ride in June, July, but with my husband, and he had a heart attack in March, and he was not allowed to do it, understandably. And at the time, also, I was a stone heavier, so I had to get a medical report from the doctors in order to say it was safe for me to ride. And I decided to drop out of that race. I decided not race that ride. And the reason why is because I wasn't doing the bike ride because I really, really, really had this desire to cycle to Paris. I had a real desire to go to Paris with my husband, and he is a keen cyclist. And so I'd chosen to do the bike ride in order to join him with his hobby and his interest, and to get to go to Paris with him. And so actually at that time, I just wanted to pull back. I wanted to be with my husband, and I wanted to spend that year nurturing and supporting him as he worked out how to get back to riding. And it just didn't feel right for me to be riding when he couldn't, and it was his passion. I was just joining on with his hobby. So I was okay with not completing that, not doing it, because I knew exactly why I'd chosen to do that in the first place. So if you have started something and haven't finished, go back and think about, how did you make the decision? Why are you doing it? And more importantly, who are you doing it for? And then when you've got clarity of what you want, why you want it, and who you want it for, that often will reignite and remind you of why you're on this journey. And 80% of the time, people will complete what they said they're going to do. They will get through it and make it happen when they know and they have clarity of what they're doing and why they're doing it. 10% of the time, though, it will come down to confidence. So if you have started something and you haven't finished it, nearly always when I've worked with somebody, it's because they lacked confidence either in their ability themselves, the skill set to do it, so there was something new about the process, or they lacked confidence in the process itself. So take book writing, for example, particularly with first-time authors. When you are writing, you might talk to a book mentor, and the book mentors generally are people who find it easy to write books because that's their skill set, that's what they're confident with. And so they'll often talk about, how to write a book. This is the first thing you do, second thing you do, but you won't yet know how you write a book. So I know that when I write a book, I go through quite a cathartic process because I'm updating and changing my story. I'm building my own confidence in my stuff, because a lot of what I've done is being done on an unconscious level, and I have to bring it back to the conscious level. And sometimes I discover that I'm giving advice to clients and guiding them in a particular way, but I'm not taking my own advice. And as I write it, I find myself having to go on this journey to actually change my own story, update my own narrative about myself. And I don't want to publish a book where I'm not walking my talk. And so right now with Do, Delegate or Ditch, I'm in the ditching part. I'm really having a year of letting go of the story that was very much associated with Manage a Critic. I'm having to let go of the fact that I was someone that was critical of myself, that put myself down, because actually that's not who I am today. And this quarter, one of my main goals is to really own my confidence. So it's like be really, really confident and really happy with who I am, and not having to tell these stories of this vulnerability and not being okay, because actually, yes, I get sad, yes, I get angry, yes, I feel loss and pain, but I'm resourced and I know my process to get from wherever I am emotionally to where I want to be. And so the reason we don't do what we say we're going to do and we start things is because we don't have confidence in the process. And when we don't know what the actual process is, whoever's just joined me this morning, please do say hello. Tell me where you're listening in from. Oh, and as I just said that, they just jumped off. So if you don't know the process, you'll also have no idea of how long it's supposed to take. And what can happen in this world is we compare and contrast with other people and how fast and how slow other people do things, and we can start to doubt ourselves. Whereas if you know your process and you track how long it takes you, so I know that my first book did take me 5 years to write. So if the second one takes 5 years to write, that's fine. I'm okay with that. And I'm really committed that next year I'm absolutely going to get it published, and I've booked a week away with Karen, my book mentor, in October, and I'm going to really unravel that, get the structure really clear in my head, because I know once that's clear now, I can write in between clients early in the morning and it will get done, and the manuscript will be ready for peer reviewing again. So I want you to think about whatever it is that you're doing. Good morning, David, the man in a tutu. Absolutely. Please do put a link to your fundraising, because you do so much to help people with their well-being. And I was watching your video on Twitter yesterday with your bands and your body strengthening. And so one of the things that I'm talking about today is why we don't finish the things we started. So the number 2 was confidence, and we don't have confidence in the process. So David's doing this I forgot what it's called, Movement for Wellness, and it's about getting yourself fit so you get mentally fit as well. And they were talking very much yesterday about sort of bite-sized chunks. And so if you know that you can't go from where you are now to running a marathon, you can't go from where you are now to being super fit, but you have to do little bits every time, then you will find out, you will be able to go through it. And the number one reason why we lose confidence is because we don't engage with evidence-based feedback. We just engage with comparing, contrasting, and criticizing. So if we compare and contrast ourselves with others, and we compete with other people rather than competing with ourselves, then we will lose confidence in ourselves in the process. Whereas if you know what needs to happen, and you can compare it with your last attempt to getting fit, or your last time of writing a book, or your last time of doing social media, or your last time, you can see whether you're improving and progressing based on a previous version of yourself rather than someone else. And if you compare yourself to other people all the time, it's really easy to lose confidence. But those people who have confidence in themselves and confidence in the process and confidence to learn new things, when they listen to other people, they don't listen to other people as they're the expert, they're so much better than me, I must be stupid. They're like, okay, so what they do is that and what I do is this. They compare, and then they take pieces of that knowledge from the other person and apply it to their own world. If you try to just take on somebody else's process, if you've got confidence to just trust the process and just follow it, that's great. But if you don't know yourself really well, you won't know how you learn. You won't know how you work at your best. You don't know how you want to live. And then often what happens is you're trying to fit yourself into somebody else's system. A great example for me would have been a mentor I was working with a couple of years ago. Absolutely adore him, love him. He's a great guy. He's a youngster and he has no children. I've got 5 children and 4 grandchildren. So my lifestyle and my priorities are very different to him. And I'm not on the same trajectory, but I could take what he was teaching me and fit it into my system because I've got confidence with my own processes. David's got, here's the link, Man in the Tutu, and Move for Wellness. I'm glad I roughly got the name. Thank you very much, David. And the third reason why we don't finish what we're going to start is because of the quality of the feedback. And that'll be the feedback you're giving yourself. So if you are in a place where you lack confidence and you're criticizing yourself, you're putting yourself down, your system right now will most likely be in a place of fight, flight, or freeze. And then when you make a decision, you are making it from just getting myself out of danger right now, and it won't be a decision that necessarily will be good for the medium and the long term. It won't be aligned with a life purpose. It will just be for survival. So if you're very critical of yourself, you will be putting your own system into fight, flight, or freeze. And every decision you make will be very reactive and it'll be in the moment. And you won't be in a position where you can actually plan and make decisions that are good for you today, that are going to be good for you next month and next year and for the rest of your life. And so instead what you do is you just make a quick decision to make yourself feel better, safer, or more secure in the moment, but it's not necessarily always the right decision. And that means we're impatient, we're intolerant with people, we're snappy, and so it impacts our performance and our relationships. It can also be to the way when we're like that of ourselves, we actually can invite other people. So we actually tell other people to tell us what we're doing wrong or tell us off when we're not getting things right. We can also be very sensitive to what we hear. So even when other people are just talking about their successes, if we don't feel as good as them, we start to feel criticized by them. So even if someone just asks us a question, like I remember my husband asking me once, well, how much will that cost? And I'm thinking, I don't know. And there was a time when I made up a story that when he said how much will it cost, that he thinks I'm spending too much money. And of course that then meant that I was giving myself feedback, that I was wasting money, I wasn't doing very well. What I learned is that when I change the way that I give, receive and invite feedback, I simply have to answer that question and stay curious. And when I asked myself, well, how much is it going to cost? And I don't know the answer. And I go, oh, well, that'd be really good if I did work that out. Or if he said, when will you get the return back on your investment? And I'm like, I don't know, then that means I have to go back through that confidence process and work out when would I get the money back on it. And often what happened in those conversations, once you change the way you give, receive and invite feedback, is that I realized that actually sometimes I hadn't made the decision to do a particular thing in my business or going on a particular course because it was profitable. I did it because I really loved it. And I remember a time about 6 years ago where I said to him, actually, I'm not really running the business to make a profit. I'm running a business because it pays for all the personal development that I want to do so that I can be the best mum, so I can be the best wife, so I can be the best friend that I can be. And actually at the time, we had already agreed I was going to be a stay-at-home mum for the children. So I didn't have to work. I didn't need to earn the money. But I did get caught up in a loop at one point where I was really criticising myself because the business wasn't making as much money as everybody else was. I didn't seem to be working the hours that everybody else was working because I'd forgotten why I set the business up. And then obviously my children are all grown up now. My youngest is 23. And so now it is a business. And so the decisions I make now have got a different focus. And I'm not buying into lots of courses and paying for loads of stuff because my focus is on the profit and utilising the skills that I've already got and what I've learned over the last 30 years. So I hope that's useful to you today. I want you to think about if you're not finishing things that you started, do you have clarity of why you started it? Do you have confidence in the process and do you understand how you work, learn and live and therefore how long it's going to take you? And lastly, do you need to change the way that you give, receive and invite feedback? If this video has been useful to you and you know that you want to look at finding out why you're not motivated to take action, then please, I will put a comment in the link later, please contact me because we've got the 7-day Makeup Motivator starting on Monday at 7 o'clock, 6th of September to the 13th of September 21, and we will be deep diving into your personal outcome, what it is you want to have happen and helping you to unpack, why do you want it, getting confidence in the process, but during that journey we're also going to help you change the way you give, receive and invite feedback. If this has been of interest, please like, subscribe, share and tell other people about it. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you again at Monday at 9 o'clock. Bye.